3 and 4, where it was mentioned that the Arurukshor Munir Yogam Karma Karanam Uchyate, Yoga Rudasya Tasyeva Shama Karana Uchyate. So, two kinds of people, one who are still working, still trying to sadhakas, who are at different stages in their sadhana and they're trying to ascend to yoga. And then there's others who has already attained that state of yoga, that ultimate state where he is naturally a karma sannyasi, sarva sankalpa varjita. There is no kind of a restless intentions that drives him away. He's happy to sit in meditation. He's happy to rest in there without too much of things. See, when we have too many things calling us to do this, do that, then the effort we have to put to sit still is too much in the meditation. So based on that is these contemplations. We have to check ourselves. Is my mind cooperative and willing to sit for meditation? So there's too much of rajas, too much of, things on our list to do. Of course, we all have that as responsibilities, but the mind should not get too wrapped up with that. That is where, karma yoga, doing things without seeking results. So that is where it will allow us to even sit for meditation. How much time can I regularly dedicate to meditation without feeling lost or overly restless? So again, it is a gradual process. So a person who can sit for half an hour, he should slowly make an effort to sit for 35, 40 minutes. A person who can sit longer should make an effort. So gradual progress according to where we are. And then there is always the option, if I'm unable to meditate, can I use that time for selfless activities? So karma yoga, we know, is a bahiranga sadhana. So through that our external sadhana, to using that external instruments in the sadhana, we become equipped to then use the inner instruments. So both karma yoga is a helpful means for dhyana yoga. So, how can I balance my daily activities with meditation? So, our responsibilities, our duties, even taking care of the body, everything, that also is duties, right? So, how do we balance that with setting aside time for this path of yoga, what is called here as yoga ruda, to one who attains to that state of yoga? Hmm? How do I balance my activities with meditation? And same thing. Um, how do I keep my activities in check to ensure that I don't compromise my meditation time? So this we have to be very uncompromising. Whatever sadhana we are doing, japa, meditation, this, that has to be an uncompromising time. We have to be very careful when we make excuses, oh, I can't do this. So that if you're not aware, then the mind will tend to slip away because it doesn't want to make that effort in meditation. Sitting quiet requires that the mind will watch itself, right? Become aware, and also to be able to hold that mind in that Atma. Okay, so these are some based on the shlokas. Now this is already introducing the meditation. So this chapter, as we know, Atma Sanyama Yoga. So here the teachings we have already been introduced to this thing of meditation, this yoga ruda. Here, these shlokas which we are looking at. Now, the next shloka which we are looking at is so here it was mentioned in the last class, yada hi nendriyateshu nakarma swanushajjate. So that person who's not attached to the objects, he is not attached to the works also, to all the activities, karma anusajjate, meaning he is karma. karma svanusajjate, meaning that attachment to any kind of duties is not there. As long as any duties he has to do, he will do. But for some reason that duty is over, that finished, or somebody else is there to do it, then he's happy to walk away. So this is where, we sometimes say, right, like nobody is indispensable, meaning our duty in life are not like, without us, nothing will go on. So life goes on with or without us, that and the idea we have that without me, this will not happen. It's based on that sense of our own being wrapped up in that self, that karta bhava. So we get identified with the doership so much that we think that without me, this will not happen. So this is that idea of a yoga ruda. We discussed about a person who is enlightened, who is already enlightened, meaning at least he's stable in that sthita prajna, that stable in that wisdom or in the meditation. So for such a person who has already attained that yoga, what we that is the goal for all of us who are still sadhakas. But such a person who has already attained that yoga, he is free from all sense of duties. So just as Bhagavan, he will do the duties, but he doesn't have that identification with that. Okay, so that is why such a person is qualified now to come to meditation. Now, when we come to meditation or any kind of a sadhana which requires internal Antaranga sadhana, even the Vedanta sadhana which we call Shravana Manana Nididhyasana, that is also Antaranga sadhana because you are listening, you are contemplating, and you are meditating on that truth, right? So that also is an Antaranga sadhana. And this requires that greatest effort from our side. See, outer effort is still easier for most people. When somebody is lazy, you can tell that person, oh, go do this, go do that. Go, if not anything, go work in the gym or something, you say, So they are okay, they will work there because you use the body, that muscles. But to use that mind, especially to introspect and to contemplate on that higher truth. That requires a very purified effort, a kind of a already a purified mind making that effort. So that is why now this shloka, which we are going to cover today, this is a very important shloka, meaning it is a shloka that is very popular with a lot of these motivational speakers, life coaches and other people, because this shloka is quoted for how one can, no matter how hopeless we seem, we can always make that change. We can always get work towards becoming that realized person. That like how great beings are. Huh? Shankaracharya, Buddha, all these people attain great things, right? Similarly, we have that same potential. We have that same Atma Tattva. So that motivation is given in this shloka. And again, this is an expression of that how a sadhaka has a degree of free will. The many times we had this discussion, right? So is there free will or everything is fated? So even they say that sometimes, even enlightenment is like it will happen when it will happen. So we don't need to do anything and other things. So, but yet we have the notion of free will. As long as we have that sense that I am exercising my free will, we have to work and purify towards a sadhana. So this part of the teachings that is coming, especially in this chapter, is very sadhana predominant. So how do we exercise our will? How do we go about getting that wisdom? How do we overcome all our karmas, vasanas, everything? So this is here, very similar on the lines of the Yoga Sutras, many aspect of this chapter. So here, it is the potential of the person, or how you can also harm yourself. So you can either help yourself or you can harm yourself. And ultimately, one more important pointer that is going to come is nobody else can really rescue you. If you are not willing, if you're not ready, nobody can really help you, even on the spiritual path. So whether it is the guru or any Mahatma, their blessings and all that will help us to come on the path and be on the path. But at the same time, just by their blessings, nobody can get liberation. So this is where the Gita and all the Shastras are very clear about it. You cannot just by a touch or by anything lift somebody to moksha. One has to make one's own effort. Of course, all that help can come through the blessings of Mahatmas, Gurus, and all that. We are aided, we are helped on the path. But if we are not ready, if we are not open, it cannot happen. So that is a very powerful shloka today. And let us look at that first. Let us chant this shloka. So the shloka 5. So you please repeat after me. Uddharedatmanatmanam
Uddharedatmanatmanam
natmanam avasadayet
Natmanavasadayet
atmaiva vyatmano bandhur
Atmaivahyatmano bandhur
atmaiva ripuratmanah
Atmaiva ripuratmanah
bandhuratmatmanastasya येनात्मैवात्मना जितः अनात्मनस्तु शत्रुत्वे वर्तेतात्मैव शत्रुवत् जितात्मनः प्रशान्तस्य समा परमात्मा समाहितः शीतोष्णसुखदुःखेषु स्थामानापमानयोः Okay. So this shloka is a very important shloka, very often quoted shloka. Uddharet atmanatmanam, na atmanam avasadayet. So the first line itself is packed with a lot of things there. So one should lift oneself by oneself. Again, this atma is we have to be very careful. Not every time, especially in Gita, atma refers to the supreme self. The word Atma means self, ourself. So what is this Atma? Is it only that supreme self, or it can also be used for a lot of things like body, mind, ego, everything. Where we are identified with. What is our predominant identification? So here that one should lift oneself by oneself. Uddhared Atman Atmana. Atmanam avasadayet. But one should not pull down oneself or degrade oneself or lower oneself by oneself. So both are by oneself. You can lift oneself or you can pull down yourself. Atmaiva vyatmano bandhu. You are your own friend, or oneself is one's own friend. Atmaiva ripuratmanaha. And one's own person, you are your own enemy, or yourself is your own enemy. So So what is this actually saying? So this there's a lot of self here, a lot of atma here, right? So one way is that we can categorize here, like you can see also that it is used like capital S sometimes, no, and lower S. The idea is that we are talking about there is within us two identities or two aspects of ourselves. One is what is called as that lower self, which is identified with vasanas. It is that ego which is identified with the sangata or the body, mind, and intellect, or even the senses. So this self, which is identified as a limited being, an ego. And then there is a higher self. This higher self is also an ego only, but it is identified with that higher intellect. It is identified with the Guru Tattva, or we can say it is identified with the Atma Tattva. So there is two selves within us. And as we know in the first shloka of Gita only, these two are always at battle. These are the Pandavas and Kauravas. One is telling us that, let us have a enjoyable life. Let us just, spend time. Or at the most, let us just spend time making money and having fun, getting a lot of property, and just, having a good life, enjoyable life. Because this is the only life I'm sure of. And then there is another thing, which is what we call the voice of our conscience, the voice of our own self. This is always prodding us upward. Control your senses, focus your mind, try to stay peaceful, try to do good for others, try to identify yourself with that pure entity. So these two are constantly clashing. Now, what the sloka here is saying is that Shankaracharya mentions Uddharet samsara sagare nimagnam atmana, meaning one should lift oneself from what? One is already sunk in that samsara. So where do we lift ourselves from? We are stuck in samsara, and one should make an attempt to lift oneself from that samsara. How? Yoga Ruda. That one attains to that state of Yoga Ruda. Then, meaning you see the word Yoga Ruda we discussed, right? One who has ascended, just like how one who ascends on the horse. Once he gets on the horse, he's on the horse, right? So one who's still trying to get on the horse, he's making effort. So similarly here, samsara is like that. You are still stuck in the world, and you're not able to ride away or get away. So this samsara is what? So this word I'm hoping everybody is familiar. Samsara is that what we call not just. It is not. Sometimes people think samsara means only that life after life. I'm taking life after life of birth and death, transmigratory. So they say, okay, I don't know about next life, so I don't care about it. This present life also is samsara, because here every day we are experiencing a host of suffering. Everything is going up, everything is going down. Nothing is stable. No thing in your life is ever stable. Your body is not stable. Not just your body, your environment is not stable. Who knows, tomorrow there could be a war where you are, or your own relationships with people. They're also not, nothing is stable. So this is the nature of samsara. Nothing ever is satisfying. Nothing ever is permanent. So this realm of existence, which we have identified ourselves with, this is what he's saying we have to lift ourselves from. So how do we go about it? Because when in samsara, our purushartha is what? So there are four purusharthas. This I hope everybody knows. What are the four purusharthas? People know? The
Artha,
purushartha means
Kama,
effort we
Dharma,
put in.
Moksha.
Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha.
Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. These are the four efforts, Purusharthas, the four areas of self-effort that everybody is trying to put. Uh, Many people are putting at the basic level of fulfilling their passions, fulfilling life's need to acquire more, have more. But then there are a few who decide they want to come on the path of righteousness. They live a good life, whether out of wisdom or out of just understanding that I want to have a good life, so I will be of help to others, or I will live fulfill what is righteous. And then there are those who are driven by moksha. They are in quest of that ultimate pursuit of life, that supreme happiness, that happiness which is ever existence, that happiness which frees us from all the sufferings, atyantika dukkha nivritti, Paramananda Prapti. So that kind of happiness they are. But now in this, what is happening within us, even when we come to seeking that supreme happiness, there is a body identification happiness we want. See, everybody in the world is seeking happiness, right? This is the Purushartha. That is why in Brihadaranyaka that quote is there. We are all in a way self-centered because we want happiness. Without us being happy, many times, we are not able to give happiness also to others, right? So our brother Yajnavalkya gives the teachings to his wife Maitri, and he tells he's planning to live and pursue that life of that living that self-realized life and seeking that ultimate self-realization or abiding in that, and he's going away. So he's giving a last talk to his wife, and he tells his wife a lot of points. He says how a husband is seeking the company of the wife for the sake of his own happiness, and a father is seeking the company or the welfare of his child for his own happiness, and an employee, and similarly like that it goes on and on. But point is that Atmanastu Kamaya Sarvam Priyam Bhavati, for our own welfare, our own happiness, that ultimate happiness. Everybody else becomes dear to us because the moment somebody is not giving us that happiness, we are willing to break away from them, right? So this is the real pursuit, and this we cannot be shy about. We have to be able to admit, yes, I am seeking that happiness. So how do I go about that? So will all my people, the world friends, my especially the worldly friends, will they help? So there, Shankaracharya says, "Nahi anya kaschit bandhuhu yaha samsara muktaye bhavati." There is nobody in the friend who is a friend in the world, meaning your worldly friends, who can lead you to moksha or they can take you out of samsara. Bandhurapi tavat moksham prati pratikulam eva snehadi bandhanaya yatanatvat. Those friends are actually whom you considered your friends in the world. See, especially like when we are young age, teenagers, your friends are what? They are obstacle even for your studies. So here he's saying these people, moksham prati pratikulam, meaning these worldly friends are what? Like not just friends, relatives, everybody. They are against us seeking moksha because they need your company. They need you to be there, to support them in some way or something, right? And this is a natural thing. Friendship is based on like that. But there is nothing wrong in that friendship, but that friendship which is pulling us down, that friendship is not taking us to the path what we call a shreyas. There are two paths we talked about, right? The path which takes us to shreyas, ultimate good, and then there's a path of prayers, pleasant life, comfort life. There we have a lot of friends to ensure we get comfort. Uh, a lot of friends who will, we make friends like that. So that is why, many times when people become sannyasis or sadhakas also, right? Uh, the first thing you notice is that if you're serious on the path, you will lose many friends because you're not available for that kind of a just a pleasure bonding relationships anymore, right? So this is where our relationship, friendships, everything change, which is okay, because Buddha says if you don't get a friend who will walk with you on the spiritual path, it is better to walk alone, he says. Meaning, if there is nobody, is somebody who's not going to help you, if you don't find somebody who's helping you on that, then you walk alone. It is better to walk alone. That famous poem is there by Rabindranath Tagore too. Ekla chalo re, he says, meaning if there's nobody who is there to go with you in your purpose, that meaning the higher purpose of life, then walk alone, be willing to walk alone. So this is where, it is now trying to take us. You have to lift yourself by yourself, meaning there is nobody else you can be dependent on. Your parents, your children, your friends, your spouse, nobody. So this is the first message he's giving us. This is the path for those who are wanting to come on the path of Shreyas. What is this? How do we go about this? So first is Vichara. Vichara means discernment. Huh? What is good? What is bad? Finding that awareness where we are, trying to being free from our own ragadvesha. See, most friendships and enemies are based on ragadvesha. I make a friend because there is some bonding there, or some kind of a natural inclination, or an enemy because something he doesn't support becomes an enemy. So vichara is this, that we are discerning what is really good for me, what is really better for me. So here, if we are supported by satsanga, acharyas, shastras, and all that, then what happens? That lower self is what? That lower self is that one identified with that is senses, body, and mind. This lower self is where the jiva, that ego or the jiva, is identified with. And this will not allow us to go further because it wants just that momentary happiness, momentary comfort for the body and mind. But yet that buddhi, meaning that intellect, where the intelligence is coming, especially if you are studying the shastras, if you are learning and listening and contemplating, there is an intelligence that is coming. That intelligence aligns with that Atma Tattva or the Guru Tattva. So here is what we say, that Guru Tattva is what? So initially, you seek the help of Shastras or an outer Guru, because we need Jnana at different level. We need Jnana at that ultimate level. What is the true nature of me? We need Jnana there. Then there is the other level of knowledge we need, which is a sadhaka, my values. How do I live life? How do I identify myself as a sadhaka and live my life? So this requires a different value system. The world doesn't support this value system. So here you need some help. We need some shastras, gurus in a much more personal form, physical form. And of course, then we also, based on that, we decide how we will interact in the world. And that we can only decide ourselves, like how will my interactions be, what all things I will participate in, what I will not participate in. See, all this is the discerning faculty. If you don't do this kind of a vichara, what is the path I have to follow? And if you don't listen to this, then what happens? You are driven by that intelligence of that vasanas. There is still an intelligence. That buddhi gets identified with that samskaras, vasanas, senses, and it will drive you. So that is what he says. What is the enemy? That enemy is that yaha anya apakari bhavya shatru sopi atma prayukta eveti yuktameva avadharanam atmaiva ripu atmanaha. So he says the enemy is not somebody outside. that enemy is your own making, meaning your own mind or your own thing makes an enemy of something else. So, this is where, the friends we have and the enemies we have, they exist in our mind only. um, so this is where, the mind, if it is pure, if it is aligned with sattva guna, if it has practices which aligns and makes it towards sattva guna, such a mind will get more in tune with what we call this guru tattva. Guru Tattva means that our own Atma becomes our guide in this process. But for one whose Rajas Tamas is so high, he's not even willing to have an outer guru also, because he thinks like, okay, I have figured it all out. Or that senses joy is all I'm seeking. That person will never be able to tune in with that Guru Tattva. So this is where, our kama, krodha, the shadripus, kama, krodha, labha, moha, matsarya, these will drive that person. And at the extreme level, a person will use that intellect also to engage in very instinctive criminal activities, but internally such a person will be a very unhappy, lonely, miserly kind of person. So here is where, if that person is at that level, then of course he needs help. What, like psychology and all gives, first you to even start that sadhana. He has to even first be able to address that, understand where he is, because that level of sadhana, that level of thing requires that the person first has to understand that I am unhappy, that my ways are not right, even before he can even come to doing any sadhana meditation. Such a person will not be able to meditate. So we see this many times, right? Like people trying to teach meditation to people who are criminals and all that. So very rare cases of such people will be able to take in that practices, because they have to first be able to address that there is a higher self in me, and there is this lower self in me, and I am identified with this lower self, and I have to use that buddhi and that ego to identify with that higher self. So that person has to first start practicing that self restraint, and that is why, now he, the second shloka, if you look, the point is there, how can that one atma, that one self, be the friend and the one self be the enemy? So here it says, Bandhuratmana Bandhuratmatmanastasya yenatmaivatmana jitaha. So the one who has not conquered that, one who has conquered that senses, the one who has conquered the mind, the senses, for him that mind is a helpful mind. So here it is not necessarily Atma. That mind itself of that person becomes his friend, because that mind is a controlled mind. It has that shama, dhamma, everything. But for one whose mind itself, senses are not controlled, anatmanastu shatrutve, varte tatmaiva shatruvat, he himself becomes his enemy. He will soon, he'll be driven out by his senses. See that story, many of you, some of you know, in the Shrimad Bhagavatam. That person who is a very evil. He is so evil that his mother has to kill herself, because she can no longer, feed all his needs and all that. And he lives a very bad life, very sensuous life, and to such an extent that he doesn't even know how, he's his own enemy. And then, as the story goes, he becomes a kind of a ghost, and then he comes to listen to that Shravanam. So until that point, he doesn't realize he was his own enemy. So similarly, in our life also, when we are dependent on our instincts, which is driving us, or our mind, some desires are pulling us, we are not able to even discern. It's like there isn't even that little ray of light. So we are unhappy, but still we are not willing to let go. Meaning we are holding, clinging on to our desires, our needs, our anger, our passions, and all our kleshas, even though at the stake of our relationship, our friends, our well-being, our health, everything. So this is where, we become our own enemy. Hmm? So this point is what, he's talking about. And of course, uh, the here we have many illustrations, other illustrations of people also, and one of the famous stories is that of Milarepa. Milarepa was this person, he something bad was done to him, to his family. So he, in a very revengeful attitude, he went and learned some siddhis, like very black magic kind of things, and he used this on those people who hurt him, and he killed them all. Then later on, somebody told him, the amount of harm you have done, it will take you lifetimes to ever have a sense of peace in your life, because that much harm you have done. So then he realized that, oh, I have done so much wrong, and how do I rectify myself? How do I? So that intention comes. So this is where many sadhakas are, that intention comes. But that force, the habitual force, the samskaras, vasanas are so strong. They will not allow. We will not be able to listen to anybody too. But in him, that attitude was there. So he went to that guru, Marpa. His guru treated him, neglected him almost, and asked him to build a stone tower so many times. So he goes, tries and does, and again he tells, take it off, do again, take it off, do again. So, but yet he was determined, because his mind had become his own friend, and he decided that I want to change. So many times it is like this, sadhakas, many students are like that, right? You tell them a little bit, then they will not come back again. Or you try to correct a little bit, they will not be able to take it. Be very close, but they'll not be able to make it. But then somebody who is very far away, he wants to improve, he wants to change. So that mind, in that intention has come. uh, so they will be willing to come all the way from wherever they are to make that change. Similarly, Milarepa was like that. He took all that effort from wherever he was. He wanted to change. And most importantly, Milarepa's story is very important because his was a path of meditation. Then he went on the retreat where he also had to face a lot of hurdles. He had to go through a lot of inner conflicts, inner turmoils, because outwardly he was obeying the guru, right? But inwardly still there was a rebellious mind. That samskaras, this force was there. But he worked with that force of the mind, so consistently trying to lift himself by himself. That 12 years, they say, he was in a retreat. So all the while he was working on lifting that mind by himself. There was nobody else, right? So the meditation is like that. Now, why is this shloka coming in the meditation chapter? Because in meditation, there is nobody else. You are there yourself. You have to lift yourself in meditation. You can get the mantra from the guru, techniques from the guru, or some things, but you have to be vigilant of how you are getting lost, or how you are not making that effort, and again come back. He will mention that as many times the mind goes, so many times you pull it back. So this constant, consistent, repeated effort requires to be done by whom? It has to be done by yourself. So this is where he's saying you have to lift yourself by yourself. So there is nobody else. Ultimately, it just comes to this point that with all the knowledge, all that wisdom, that senses, body, mind complex which we have, either they can be our friend, through which we can master asanas, pranayama, sit for long period in meditation. So if the body is trained with asanas, it will be your friend. If the mind is trained, it will stay still. It will cooperate, focus. And the senses, if you have restrained the senses through pratyahara, you're able to withdraw them from their outward amusements, focus on that, to focus inwardly. So all this shifting, of the focus is where that when you control, vashi, he says, meaning control, when you're able to hold that senses, then that mind will get purified and help us. It will help us. So that same mind becomes a friend of this jiva, meaning this jiva, which this soul or the self, which was identified as this limited entity, now uses the help of these upadhis itself. The sangata, which are controlled, they become a useful thing to actually move towards that Atma. And then as you come closer and closer, then the purified mind helps attune to this joy, this peace. And this is what the next shloka says, that, jitatmanah prashantasya, that person who has conquered the senses, he becomes peaceful because the senses are no longer looking outwardly for gratification. And Paramatma, meaning that Atma, that Paramatma, which is within oneself, the highest self. So until now, he was saying Atma, Atma. Now he's saying Paramatma. What is this Paramatma? Paramatma means a supreme being. That supreme being is that one's own self. So this supreme being, which is one's own self, that is balanced in what it becomes samatva. We will go in little detail into it next class. So that samatma bhava, siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate, here it said, right? That in success or failure, or in heat, cold, honor, dishonor, whatever people say, you are able to abide in that samatva. So this is where, the this shloka is a constant. It's a good one to contemplate, to check ourselves. How much aware am I of all the pull of the lower self in me, and how this lower self is my own enemy. Whether it is like too much restless activities, rajasic, or too much tamasic activities, these will take us away from our true happiness, and they will put obstacles. And so when our own lower self, which is like our own enemy, we become almost like a friend of that, then we seek out worldly friends who are accordingly like that. All our worldly companions, friends, and people we interact or we go with, or even sometimes partners, spouses, and all they seek, right? So they're all based on that kind of a lower needs, lower gratifications, because our own self has become our enemy until that suffering hits us hard, then we wake up, but again temporarily, and again we go back. So this is why, that knowledge is one of the first means of awakening. So when we start getting knowledge, this knowledge brings in us that sense of discernment, viveka. So this is the viveka, the three levels of viveka we need. The first level of viveka is the highest, atma anatma viveka. Second level of viveka is in my daily life. What is my purushartha? Where am I focusing my efforts? Am I focusing my efforts in artha kama, or am I focusing my efforts in dharma or sadhana, or things like that? This is the second level. And the third level is a Vyavaharika Viveka also we need sometimes in order to be a sadhaka, to be a devotee, to be a meditator. You need certain things where you will say no to. So that kind of a Viveka also we need. So, so these are the different sadhanas, a different viveka here which we need. So, but however, as I mentioned, the at what level we address it, at what sadhana we use, it is also important. If a person is not ready for meditation, like, as I was mentioning, if somebody has too many uh, impurities, or like as they sometimes say, childhood traumas, a lot of those kind of things, then the person's mind will not allow them to sit for meditation. So they have to seek other asanas, other sadhanas, like asanas, for example, asana, pranayama, those and other kind of a methods. No? So because meditation is this ability where you are able to witness these thoughts, and that person will not be ready at that stage. So even that is why sometimes these japa sadhanas are given to sadhakas, because through that japa there is a certain vibratory power which will induce that sattvicness in oneself and attune oneself more and more. So these are the uh, you know different ways where we can learn to lift ourselves by ourselves. And as it is mentioned here, na atmanam avasadayet. So we should, if we are not able to even completely lift ourselves, we should at least be aware. Are we pulling ourselves down? So, okay, so we will leave it at that. Any questions, comments people have, you can ask or discuss.
Swamiji, may I ask a question on these verses, just 5 and 6? In the way that you were describing this kind of phenomenon of having two selves,
Yeah,
we're still talking at the relative level, like our best self being put forward and our lower self, but we're not
yes.
talking about Paramatman.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So that only that later shloka where he talks about Paramatma, but there it is not about the Paramatma in the context of this higher lower self. There is that abiding in that Paramatma, the next
That's
one.
verse 7.
So
Okay.
verse 7,
Yeah.
yes. Shitoshna, Sukha, Dukkha, Shitoshna, Mana, Apamana Yoga is coming, right? So there it is that abiding in that samatva of that Paramatma. But the 5 and 6 shloka, it is that higher and lower self that we are identifying with.
Okay. Thank you.
Relative selves, yeah.
In Swamiji, you are talking that with japa and mantra, for example,
Yeah.
listening mantras, we can lift the mind so
Yes.
that it's capable to meditate. It's
Correct.
a way to prepare the mind for the meditation, japas and
Yes.
mantras also.
Correct. Yes. So the mantras and japas, and especially if you get a mantra from somebody or that from an authorized person, that is a even better. So they have that they say these mantras are vibratorily transmitted over lineages. So, but yeah, mantras in general, So sometimes see that is why even chanting Bhagavad Gita sometimes, these have a certain power. Just the chanting of the mantras itself also have a power. So in fact, you will see in the later chapters, Bhagavan says even chanting this Bhagavad Gita, many people will get a lot of punya or things. So it is like a meditation in a way also. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So there is a yes, Ajay.
So may I ask a question about verse 4? I know we treated of it last class, but
Yeah,
so obviously the term yoga is used in the Gita in different contexts and in different ways.
correct.
When it says in verse 4, he is then said to be established in yoga, we're talking
Yeah.
about dhyana yoga, right?
Here
The
mostly
yoga of
dhyana yoga.
meditation.
Yeah, but it was mentioned there that yoga ruda, the word is yoga ruda there. Wait, when he says,
Right.
so that person yoga ruda is a sarva sankalpa sannyasi, meaning he has renounced all intentions, all desires. Uh-huh. So mostly meditation only, somebody who is able to abide in that state of chitta vritti nirodha, because there only there is no sankalpa in that state of samadhi. But yet, from the context of karma sannyasa, where we have come from, this chapter comes from karma sannyasa. So the person is free from any sense of doership. That is when the desires, intentions falls away. So he has slowly come to this with that preparation of karma sannyasa.
So a stillness and the gift of self-abidance through karma sannyasa.
Correct. Yeah. So, meaning there is no vasanas or no sense of doership that is pulling him away to do activities. Then only he can sit still, in meditation. So here we are not talking about the practitioner meditator. Here we are talking about an established meditator. When you talk about ascended, so this is how he has worked himself through. So actually one question, see, we have to be clear when it says lift yourself through yourself, don't pull yourself by yourself. So I have mentioned three sadhanas, transcending sadhanas, transcending part of sadhana, and then the purifying sadhana and the restraining sadhana. So which sadhana or sadhanas are we referring to when we say lift yourself by yourself? Don't pull yourself down by yourself. Is it the
The
transcending?
first two.
The first two, yes.
The first two. No, why not the third one?
Because you're already there in transcendent sadhana, like self-abidance, aparoksha, jnana yoga. Haven't you already done the work so that you can be in
Yeah.
that place of Vedantic sadhana?
Yeah, so the yoga ruda is that person who is transcended already. So here it is basically saying that 1 and 2 only, especially when the sixth mantra, it says the one who has restrained the senses. For that person, the Atma, one is one's own friend. So there is very clearly restraining. But the purification is also implied because in order to recognize that one is one's own friend, you need purification. So that but the eventual part of transcending is where that knowledge has to be there. So with the knowledge, the person is doing the sadhanas, but he's not directly here undertaking the transcending sadhana. He's working towards the transcending sadhana. Why I'm saying is because the word lift oneself by oneself, right? It is not directly the transcending sadhana here. It like you want to go to the transcending sadhana, but you are preparing the ground here. Okay, that's debate.
Yes, Swamiji,
Yeah.
one
Ah,
question. Regarding the word sankalpa,
ah,
are there two meanings? Because sometimes
yeah,
in meditation, Swamiji asks us to, okay, make a
yeah,
sankalpa. So, but
correct.
here we don't have to have a sankalpa. So
No, this is what I'm saying. See, that is why these three sadhanas you have to really understand. When we say no sankalpa is required, that is at the transcending level of sadhana. So, but for most of us, we are still working, I would say for most of us, but I don't know, at the basic two sadhanas, restraining and purifying sadhana. So at the level of purifying sadhana, we need a good sankalpa because we are so much loaded with bad sankalpas. So the good sankalpa is to override the bad sankalpa. So just as how he's saying, right? You have to be a friend to yourself. So you take the sankalpa intention that I will resolution. From tomorrow onwards, I will get up morning 5 and do my meditation. or this evening I will sleep early. See, all this sankalpas also at a smaller level. Why? Because these are purifying sadhanas. Huh? When you come to that stage of transcending sankalpa, then the guru and everybody will tell you, you don't need any more, anything more. Huh? That person who has attained that state of samadhi, that higher samadhis, that person has to make effort to let go of all sankalpas, because any thought at that point can be a problem. Even to do a thought of good to others, that thought will disturb his samadhi. So that level, that is why, the sadhanas, this see, this part of Bhagavad Gita, right? These are sadhana predominant chapters we are looking at. So here it is very individualistic, meaning that each person has to have specific guidance and go about with their sadhana. At the higher level of knowledge, like the some shlokas in second chapter and fifth chapter we looked at, and later chapters also we will look at, there it is at the higher level knowledge only.
Swamiji, but the third level, we
Ah,
have nididhyasana. This is
correct.
also a sankalpa. Huh? We have to have this intention to
Yeah.
we have the knowledge, but we have to practice it so that
Ah.
this is our
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah, so there also it is there, but as you go higher and higher, what happens, that sankalpa you have will be at such a level that it is like a dissolving sankalpa, meaning it is like a something like you put in the water and it dissolves by itself, it will not stick on to you, that sankalpas. So it like Shankaracharya gives one example of olden times where they used to use some kind of a specific nut, that nut had this quality where you put it in water and that nut will clean that thing and it will itself also dissolve. So that is how it's based. Okay, all right. So yeah, so these are good chapters. This is a very good shloka, and all of you, in some way, you should learn, if not to chant this shloka, understand the meaning of the shloka. You can share it with your friends and people. Whenever somebody is going through some difficulty, something. So these are ways you can also share and help people. Okay, Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om